Hey there, it's Cindy, and you're listening to Basic Folk, where we have authentic conversations, honest conversations with folk musicians. That's what it's all about. And I am in my basement studio right now. I had to turn my little heater on because it was freezing in here, and then I turned it back off so it doesn't make the whir noise, so I do that for you. In this episode of Basic Folk, we're going to be talking to the delightful Anna Tivel, who is a Northwest singer-songwriter. She lives in Portland. We'll get to know her over the next half hour or so. One thing about Anna Tivel is that she writes character songs, meaning her songs aren't necessarily directly about her life, which I think is super interesting. She's pretty young, and she's very good at it, very good at looking outside herself in interesting ways. And I want to say, due to popular demand, I will be playing a clip of her new song, Fence Line, before we listen to the interview, because people kept telling me it would be helpful to hear the musician that you're interviewing. It would be helpful to hear their music somewhere in the podcast. So this is the third interview, and it didn't take that much for me to break down and put a clip in the interview. So if you have any feedback, please feel free to share it with me. You can go to my website, cindyhouse.net. Glad you're here. We're going to check out this song, Fence Line, from Anna Tivel, a clip of it. It's going to be on her LP, The Question, which is coming out on April 19th. And you're going to want to listen to all of her previous releases on Spotify, or hey, go download the album or go buy the vinyl. It's worth it. It's really great stuff. Okay, so here is a clip of Anna Tivel's Fence Line, and then we'll hear our conversation with Anna Tivel.
Alone in the dark at the edge of the border, a coyote calling the moon from the sky, the bright shining eye of a circling vulture and holes in the old fence line. And traveling far from the land of my father, the red cactus flower and the weight of a crime, the faraway barking of dogs by the water and holes in the old fence line. Down here at the border, the dogs are getting close.
Thank you for talking to me.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Can you tell me about where you grew up, like what your family was like, if you had any siblings, and what that relationship was like?
Yeah, I grew up in a small town in northern Washington called LaConner. My folks still live there. I have one sister who lives in Portland now. It's where I live. And yeah, it's an amazing family. We're all super close. They're totally crazy and wonderful, and everybody played music. I think my mom was a total child of the 70s folk scene and went to Woodstock. And
your mom went to Woodstock?
She did. She's very proud of it.
Did she tell you about it?
Yeah, she has told me a little bit about it. There's parts she doesn't remember, but she won't tell me why, so to be discovered at some date.
What are some highlights?
She was really young, and her older brother took her there, and I think she was like, didn't know all the artists yet, and it was maybe Woodstock was her introduction almost to this crazy world where that many people could get together in an area and get along and be so in love with each other. And smoke all the pot and sing all the songs. She tells me about some sort of like 100 joints tied together situation getting passed around and being like 16 years old, I think, and just getting her mind blown.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your town?
Yeah, it's totally a small tourist town, so it kind of runs on that. It's by the Skagit River and the Puget Sound. It's in a valley. It's in Skagit Valley. It's a super beautiful place. They have a tulip festival every year, and that's kind of where the income comes from. A lot of it in the town is that tourism. So there's just fields and fields and fields of tulips, and buses of tourists come in and take pictures of their kids, and then they all leave. I don't know. When I was growing up, it was a lot more rough around the edges. Now it's kind of fancier. There's just like one street that's the downtown, but it was a good place to grow up. We just kind of ran in the woods and went to the community pool. Yeah, kind of everybody knows everybody sort of town. Everybody is in each other's business.
Was it a suburb or like a smaller than a suburb?
Smaller than a suburb. It's like a really small farming town. It's very like farming and fishing and tulips. Yeah.
Did you have a farm?
No, my dad was a fisherman for a long time, so they lived there because there was a marina where he could keep his boat there, and he would drive it up to Alaska in the summers, and that was his job for a long time.
How long does that take to drive to Alaska?
I just asked him that the other day. He said it would take like a week or two on the way up, and then he said he'd do it a lot faster on the way back because he'd be so done being in the boat that he'd just like push through. But
floor it.
Yeah, but he'd kind of take his time on the way and tie all the lures and stuff that he'd need for the season on the way up while the boat drove. And
so is that what he did when you grew up? He was a fisherman?
Yeah, for a long time he did construction after that. But yeah, for a long time he'd be gone for 3 to 5 months every summer, and we'd go visit him a time or two up there and stay on the boat when we were kids.
So you were saying that everybody in your family played music growing up, but how did that happen that you wanted to pick up music?
My dad's dad, my grandfather lived with us for a while, and he played the violin, and I just loved it. I just remember whenever he'd play, I'd just lay at his feet, and I just remember thinking it was the most beautiful sound, and he was real old, and his hands were shaky, and so it had this like the most beautiful old record of a sound to it, and
like a tremolo.
Yeah,
sound.
That was like, rougher than a trained vibrato. I still think about it. Like every once in a while I'll hear somebody who plays like that where it's untrained, but it's has so much feeling to it. And so I really wanted to play the violin always. So my folks let me do lessons. There was like a woman that would teach a lot of kids in the neighboring town, so I took lessons from her, and Vicky Archer was her name. I remember she was pretty strict, but she had like a dry sense of humor that I probably didn't understand very well when I was a kid. That I was like such a sensitive little kid. She probably terrified me, but I was like didn't understand that she was making fun of me. But yeah, so I took violin lessons always, and she'd do fiddle music in the summers, which is always because we did like Suzuki method, so it was a lot of memorizing and different variations of different songs, but then she'd kind of let us cut loose and do fiddle tunes in the summer and do some teaching by ear, and that part I loved. I think I've always loved the less formatted music can be, the more drawn to it.
How do you think the more like structured education of the violin helped you with the more like learning by ear?
I think the Suzuki method I think is really great in that way because it kind of teaches half and half. It really tries to get you to listen to the sound you're making versus just like reading notes on a page. So I'm always grateful that I started out, even though I kind of like veered off the path after that. I'm always glad to have started like that because it really, you know, it wants you to even down to how you hold your body. It kind of teaches you how to use your body to make a smooth sound.
How do you do that?
It's like you stand up straight. I remember she used to put a marble in the scroll of the violin, so if you were slouching or too low, your marble would fall out on the concrete floor, and it would be like, oh no, your marble fell out, and so I remember that.
Would there be like a few kids in your class all trying to balance marbles at once, or is it just one-on-one?
There was sometimes one-on-one, and then there would be like group classes. I remember because one time I have such a vivid memory of a kid stepping through his fiddle because he like got up to go to the bathroom or something, and we're all 9 years old or something, and he just turned and he stepped and his foot just right through his fiddle, and there's all these parents just groaning in the background.
Do you still play fiddle now?
I do, yeah. I do. That's kind of, I kind of started before I wrote songs. I played in Portland with some bands and kind of got into the music scene that way, and kind of came to songwriting later, like after college, and that just, I don't know, that just exploded my brain, I guess, in a way that nothing had ever. I think I've always loved words so deeply and kind of looked up to songwriters and as this like way to tell a story that I really loved, and I tried a little bit to write with fiddle, and it never came out in a way it never came out in a way that felt,
it's like
good.
Too slippery.
Yeah, and it's too like, it's already a really vocal instrument. I think there's like not a lot of space, and maybe I had played it for a long time, so I like immediately judge myself on the fiddle too, where I start something and I immediately think, that's not good, but guitar, I didn't know anything, so I just, every time I found a new chord, it just felt very free, and yeah.
It's interesting to have, you're so judgmental of yourself when you're trying to write songs on the fiddle, but, you're learning to write songs, and then you're also learning to play the guitar, like the two skills were forming together.
Yeah, I'm always grateful for that. That always felt like this magical time to me where I wasn't doing it because I thought, I'm going to do this for a job or anything. I just couldn't stop doing it. And I would wait till my roommates were gone, and then I would just like freak out by myself for 6 hours till they got home and just write. And
were you writing on the walls?
Yeah, just like a creepy situation.
Like, welcome home, guys.
Yeah.
Look what I did to our place.
I've been busy.
You're saying that you have always loved poetry and writers. Like, what are some writers that you admired that I feel like I read something about the way that you write songs makes you feel like a certain feeling of home or a certain opening, like that feeling you get when you are listening to a story and you connect with it. Like, who are some writers that did that for you?
I love Annie Proulx. She has all these short stories and novels that are, there's something about the way she writes it's like so unadorned, but it's so just dark and sparse. I love her writing. And Toni Morrison, I'm reading right now this, probably my favorite book ever is Beloved. Have you ever read that?
No.
Oh man, it's so...
Did they make that into a movie?
I think so, yeah. I haven't seen it.
What a cop-out response. They make that into a movie, a motion picture.
I've seen that t-shirt. Yeah, that was her. Yeah, her writing and Annie Dillard and yeah, I don't know. I love when people can tell a story and it's something that you felt very deeply, but you didn't. It's like you hadn't put words to it, and then somebody else does, and it feels like the biggest relief.
Yeah.
And you can't believe that somebody just said it so succinctly because it felt so confusing to you. That's the thing in writing that always blows me away.
Yeah, it's pretty magic.
Yeah.
You said you started writing after college. Where did you go to college?
I went to the University of Portland. There's a nursing school there. I was going to be a nurse for one hot minute. And then...
Like a hot minute, meaning like the 4 years you spent there?
No, like one semester. Oh. And then I didn't drop out. I graduated in 3 years. I got a Spanish degree. I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do or who I was. So I just kind of was there, and I thought I should just power through and get some sort of degree because everyone seems to tell you that that's the way life works.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad I did. I think it was a good, I feel lucky to have gone there, and it was a structured way to come undone, maybe, which would have been better than if I would have just, come undone on my own time.
Yeah. What a good way to put college.
Yeah.
A structured way to come undone. You are a writer. So you were in the city, and then you decided to stay there after college.
Yeah. The college is kind of in, on the north side of Portland, kind of away from everything. And I'm from such a small town that I barely drove into the city in my car. I think I felt like where I was a huge city, even though now I see that it isn't at all. And there's a Fred Meyer. And I was like, wow. Yeah, and then I moved. Right after college, I was like, okay, I'm going to live by myself downtown in the city. And so I got the cheapest apartment I could find right downtown. I was waiting tables, but kind of started writing at that downtown apartment, I think. I remember the first song I wrote there, my friend lent me a guitar for a while, and I just had it in that apartment. And I wrote this terrible song about whales having fun, maybe? I'm pretty sure it was the worst song ever. But I remember it feeling so good. Being like, oh, this is something I want to do more of.
Your songs have you have a really beautiful way of telling other people's stories in your songs. Can you talk about how you might have acquired that skill? Were there any storytellers in your family that you learned this from? Because I don't think it's super common for somebody to be 22 years old and writing about other people, I
definitely write a fair amount of my own, especially in the beginning, of my own woes, but I guess I kind of found, I remember hearing Gillian Welch for the first time, or hearing Anais Mitchell. I remember hearing her album, Young Man in America. It was the first, I was just writing the first kind of batch of songs I had ever written, and it just blew my mind that you could tell a story like that. And then, I don't know, I guess you start down a rabbit hole when you find something that you're really drawn to, and then it's totally never ending. And like Josh Ritter, I remember I was trimming weed one fall with this band that I was playing fiddle with, and so it was 12 hours a day of just bending over with these tiny scissors, and I just listened to Josh Ritter over and over and over again. And
is this some kind of Karate Kid thing?
No.
You're torturing yourself by weeding with scissors and listening to the song.
I will become
wax on, wax
on.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just think I just always think that the world is so noisy and it moves so fast. And I've always felt like I can't say, or I'm not good at saying what I'm trying to say, or like, as I'm now demonstrating, like having settling on what I mean and having it hold weight. And I've just always been very quiet, I guess, or nervous about speaking because of that. And I think those songwriters and some writers that I've found really like opened that door to me of, oh, you don't have to say it factually. You can say it how it feels, and that's also a completely worthy way to tell something, you know?
Yeah, that's so true. Just been living in a world where you need like numbers to back up what you're saying, but I think feeling's important.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you're a little quiet. Can you talk about a little bit more about what it's like to be an introvert, which I have read that is one of your identifying factors, to be an introvert in such a public profession?
Yeah. I've been so grateful for music and performing for that reason. I feel like it's taught me how to be around people and kind of communicate with people and hear them and be open to people in a way that I definitely didn't know how to, and still have trouble with. I don't know. I think I'm just a one-on-one person, and so I like to take my time and know somebody that way. And like a party is the last place I want to be. And so performing, I don't think is my natural, like, oh, great, big room of people. You're going to stand in front of them and sing your diary is like, but I love it because I feel like in the right situations, or when I feel like I'm saying something true, and then suddenly you're having this conversation with people that I was never used to getting to have, where you say something that means something to you, and then maybe somebody feels something, and then after the show they come up and they say, oh, that song really made me think of this thing in my life that was so hard, or that was so impactful. And I guess I just never knew how to get to that place with people before music. And
that makes so much sense. Like when you think, I don't know if you have any performance anxiety or not.
Oh yeah, I'm totally, yeah.
So, but what's beautiful about what you're saying is that if you get past that performance anxiety, it sounds like the reward is that you get to present yourself to a room full of people in a medium you wouldn't otherwise get to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is that what you tell yourself when you're like, oh God?
Yeah, you get to do this. Come on, girl.
Yeah.
Stop sweating and get out there.
Yeah. I've never thought about that. So I'm not a songwriter, and I have to sometimes get up in front of people, and I don't have that reward of like, oh, I get to I get to show people my true heart. It's just like I'm announcing somebody on stage, and I don't want to be up here, and it's very scary.
And that's like, that to me is so much more terrifying. I can't, to have to speak ever is, I don't know how you do that, because that seems way different to me. Yeah,
you just kind of just do it until you just are like numb.
Now I'm just here.
Yeah, here I am having a great time. I've heard performers say that when they're playing the songs, that feels the best, but then the in-between parts are the hard parts.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I feel like I'm getting more and more comfortable, but I definitely, once I'm actually playing, I feel like, oh, okay, this is great. This is what, this is what I want to be doing. I'm trying to work really hard lately on letting a show happen the way it feels like it wants to, kind of almost like it's not yours to shape. Sometimes I'll try so hard I feel like people are wanting a certain thing, or they need more humor, or they need longer stories or something, and maybe it's not it's just not going to happen out of me sometimes, and so I'll put all this pressure on.
Is it all in your head? Like, how do you measure?
Probably.
Yeah.
Totally.
Like the way that maybe somebody is just like sleepy because they woke up early. And
there's
you're
a
like,
heavy breather in the front row, and I just think I don't know. I think it's such a funny thing to do, but when it goes well, or when you feel like you connected with people, it's the most amazing thing.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the people that you listed, the musicians, like what they do in between songs. I don't think Gillian Welch does anything. And I think Aeneas and Josh are just like lovely and charming.
Josh just smiles.
Oh, yeah. He's just like, I'm the friendliest guy in the world. Everything's cool. And then it's all taken care of. When you are writing somebody else's story, how are you compelled to tell like a particular individual story? I don't know if you can explain that process or not.
It's kind of different, or it kind of depends, I guess, on, I think sometimes I'm trying really hard to tell it truthfully, like a whole story from beginning to end, and sometimes it feels good to let there be some like magical bits kind of that let it breathe, or it'll be like an amalgam of multiple stories that have the same feeling to them. But a lot of times I'll write a few versions, or I'll start, as a story really strikes me, or I have an idea and I start it a few different ways, and it doesn't feel good, and there's something like I'm not getting it right, and especially when it's actually somebody's story that I've met, there'll be a lot of times when I'm not getting it right, or I'm like dramatizing it in a way that it doesn't need, or I'm not respecting the story or something, and sometimes I'll just have to let it go, and sometimes I'll eventually feel like I told it in a way that person would feel, or that they...
Sounds like a lot of responsibility.
I don't know. But I know a lot of times there's like so much fiction in that stuff, or it's like the basis of a story that's real, and then you kind of fill in all the spaces to give it the feeling that you're looking for. But
so specifically when you are like meeting people, and maybe somebody comes up to you after a show, or you meet somebody in a store.
Yeah. What
is it about like a particular person that makes your brain go, oh, I'm going to pay more attention here and write about this person later? And then do you try to like interact with them anymore? Like, do you try to study them, or?
I think it always surprises me too. Like, you're kind of just out in the world, and some people need to talk. It just seems like they just need to talk to somebody, and I've always really liked that situation for the most part. Unless you're just like stuck in a bar and somebody's cornered you, and I don't know, I guess sometimes there's like somebody tells you something and it just won't fade from your mind ever, and you just know it and you carry it around forever, and you think about them, and you wonder what they're doing now, or how they're doing.
And I think I mean, I definitely have experienced that, where you meet somebody for like a flashing second, and then you find yourself thinking about them. Like, for me, it's usually just like later on in the day, like not like days or weeks afterwards. But that's cool. You want to like further tell their story in a way. It's nice.
Yeah, and sometimes I think that stuff gets all mixed in. It'd be like multiple people that you meet over the course of a few months that they all lost their job or something, and it just keeps compounding, and you think, you just feel all those people start to talk in your head, and Yeah.
Do you put a bit of yourself into these character songs, or are you like point for point invoking other characters?
I'm sure I definitely get in there. Well, you just even telling someone's story that you don't know well, you don't know how they actually feel, or I think that's the reason I sometimes have to write them a lot of times, or it doesn't feel right. Oh, because I think maybe I'm not the person who should be telling this story.
You're like projecting.
Or it's not mine to tell, or am I telling this because I want to? Even like, am I telling this story because I want to tell a story like this, or am I telling this because I want to do justice to this story? I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, I think it's definitely just your reaction to people and their stories is what ends up being what the story is, the feeling is based on.
Right.
Probably.
What are you getting out of writing about other people like this? Songwriters, when they write about their feelings, it helps them process their feelings and like basically like figure out like what they're thinking sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you find that with these types of character songs?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it helps so much to... I just think that you come in contact with so many people and everybody's having these like bags of emotion and struggle, and I don't know, I feel like when just in telling a story it helps to see them, or it helps to like connect yourself to somebody that you felt connected to, or you like saw a struggle in them that's a struggle in you, and just I don't know.
That's good. Stop right there. That's
okay,
good.
Great. That's all I got.
So how do you connect to vulnerability as a songwriter and as a performer?
I think I'm trying to connect to it more. I think it's one of the things I'm learning is most important in kind of doing this. I feel like I get smacked in the face over and over again by the realization that the more open and vulnerable I'm willing to be with people, the more that's returned, and the more you just make real relationships with people. And I don't, for whatever reason, it took me a weird long time to realize that if you really let yourself out, you would have true friends.
Because it's terrifying.
It's terrifying.
Yes.
Why is it so terrifying?
Because you've been hurt.
Yeah, and I find that in performing or in writing so much. Like I definitely used to drink a lot to have a buffer wall between, being in bars and in big groups of people, and just able to like be at the level that other people are at and talking and being open, and it just helped so much. But I also don't feel like it helped me to be more vulnerable. It just helped me to be more loud, and I feel like, oh, okay, now I'm as loud as everybody, or I'm like part of this party that's happening around me always, but that I'm like would rather watch from the corner. But I guess in the past few years I've realized that I am just somebody who likes to watch from the corner, and that's like another way,
I had a friend who's also a songwriter say that her ideal party is like having all of the people at the party, but her just like reading a book in the corner.
Oh, yes. Totally. Where's this person?
Do you know Maya Devitri?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's her. Yeah.
Oh, she's so great.
Yeah. So you probably could read books
we could
together.
Sit next to each other and
party.
not talk. Yeah.
At the introvert party.
Yeah.
I've read that like after your shows, people will hear you sing about other people's songs and open up to you. Is that true? And why do you think people find it so easy to open up to you?
I think it's just, I think it's maybe a thing with with art or music that made you feel something, or somebody did something vulnerable in front of you, and you feel a lot more okay, or that you feel welcome to do the same. You know, they didn't just give a speech about biology and you feel like they're in this like level far above you or something, and you could never tell them how you feel. But if somebody does something really kind of like raw in front of you, then I don't know, I always feel like, oh, that they must understand, or they like, it would be okay for me to let this scary thing out. And yeah, that's I think my very favorite part of touring is when stuff like that happens, when, you know, if something that I wrote could make somebody feel okay letting something out, that's like the thing to me.
It's a service to humanity.
I don't know about that. It just feels good. I don't know. That just feels so good to me.
Well, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this.
Good conversation.
And there you have it. That's my conversation with Anna Tivel, whose new album, The Question, is coming out on April 19th, 2019. Might I also suggest you head to Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you stream music or wherever you purchase music and look up her previous albums. She has 3 previous albums. The latest one, Small Believer, so good. It's heart-opening, it's heartwarming. She's just a really good at what she does. And I really enjoyed talking to her. I really liked her sense of humor. It was unexpected, you know, when you are talking to somebody who leaves a lot of space between words. So I tend to be pretty anxious and want to like fill up the space. But it was a great exercise in talking to Anna Tivel, who leaves lots of room in the conversation. However, she still was very quick-witted, which I much appreciated. Anyways, Anna Tivel, don't forget her album The Question, coming out April 19th. Thank you again to Alex Stanton of the band Townspeople for giving us our music, for doing our music on Basic Folk, and thanks to Laura McCarthy for her support on the podcast. Thanks to Janelle Gutierrez for help on my website and creating my website, cindyhouse.net. Thanks to Anna's manager, Stephen Foxberry, for just being an all-around great guy. We'll see you next week on Basic Folk. I'm Cindy House. You can subscribe to the podcast. Also, you can feel free to leave a review. 5-star review. That would be awesome. Okay, have a good week. See you later. Bye.